We're live.
We're live.
Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. I am joined by my better than your co-host, Glory Jones. What's happening, Glory?
I'm doing good.
It's good to see you. We before we get started, I feel like it is important to remind people that I don't do this to change anyone's mind about anything. I do it to ease my own mind about everything. It works every time, and if things go particularly well, we can all expect an hour to 2 hour distraction from our impending doom. With that said, please welcome back to the show my friend, my brother, my fellow victim of social media censorship, and someone who is absolutely unafraid to push back against that. Ryan Christian, last American Vagabond. It is very good to see you again, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to join you guys.
Absolutely. So we I feel like Slow News Day was getting some of that sweet TLAV treatment by our algorithmic overlords yesterday, because we've been following the whole Great Reset shit since like day one, and yeah, I mean, talked extensively with Corey and with Whitney and with a number of other people that have been reporting on it just intrepidly for a while now. And they had their big week at Davos last week, and so we decided to do a deep dive into that. We grabbed a couple of the panels, we went through them, and when the video uploaded, it had a let me pull it up.
Suffered through the panels, not just went through them. We suffered through them because they were bad.
Oh yeah, it's pretty painful. Those things can be. I feel the same way when I have to watch like a 3 hour.
It's true.
Yeah, it's like we watched a panel on protecting press freedoms that was all about censorship.
That's so ridiculous.
It's like they were trying so hard to frame censorship as protecting journalists.
Right.
So this is what happened. We get hit with this QAnon tag under the video. It gives the standard Wikipedia debunk paragraph of Q, at no point mentioning that this is totally a operation designed by the federal government in order to deactivate and monitor and track right-wing activists. Which, would do people a service if Wikipedia would actually be a little bit more honest about the way that they conduct their business. I feel like not that anyone who's involved with the Q LARP will turn to Wikipedia for verifiable or accurate information, but even to, it would help a little bit, I think. And you get these warnings more or less all the time, no matter what your subject material is, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I can't think off the top of my head whether the backup channel has been getting them. I'm pretty sure they have. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I'm looking really quickly while we're on. But in general, yeah, pretty much everything I do, I'm looking at like Whitney's latest one we just put up there as well. That doesn't seem to have it. I'm assuming it has something to do with like a subscriber threshold or something like that, or how many views it reaches or whatever, but to your point, yes, absolutely. I get it constantly. And it, I made the joke back in the day, whether this was back when the discussion was demonetization and, the soft monetization, and now we've gone full blown censorship, but that it's, I could make a video called Puppy Dogs and Ice Cream and it wouldn't matter because we have been labeled, which by the way, is a flagrant violation of their own rules and terms of service. Who cares? Because that's not really for anybody, but using them against us, even when we don't break them. But it's constant. And to your point with that show, it's just so ridiculous because it's clearly saying, and so people understand it, that announcement is not like, an advertisement that pops up independent of other things. That's directly related to the content you're viewing. That's why it says context. Make sure you know what they're talking about. And you're not even getting into this stuff. And it goes to your point, which I don't know if you said it yet today, but your point that you made in the tweet that Whitney had said this on your show, as well as a lot of different interviews, that they're going to be blending in this idea. And this is what Whitney and I had talked about in regard to what we think Q really was. It was a military operation designed to catch all these people. And a lot of them really believe that they're doing the right thing. And maybe even within it, some of them are doing the right thing. Like that's a mind F. Can we cuss on the show? I forget.
Of course we can.
Yeah, mind fuck. But at the end of the day, it's being used to kind of was used and still is a little bit to funnel these people into a control mechanism, which then gets them censored or gets them controlled. And then now we're seeing it get broadly put out to just anybody in dissent, anybody questioning the narrative, anybody talking about COVID or the Capitol, or you're a QAnon conspiracy theorist. I've even seen, like, in the COVID side of the argument, like PhDs that have like 40 years of experience that come out and say, oh, maybe we should be questioning this test. And like, conspiracy theorist, oh, he must be watching Q. It's over. His whole career is down the drain because he questioned one thing you're not supposed to talk about. And we should also consider the Wikipedia aspect of that. I mean, can we not recognize how ridiculous it is that Wikipedia has become like this focal point of, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember when I was in school, and I've checked, people that are still in college, you can't use Wikipedia as a source because it's not good. But yet we're going to use the entirety of our society or the entirety of Wikipedia to, guide our society in the right direction. As you pointed out, Steve, it's a government op. Or rather, I think you were talking about Q, but I thought the same thing. It's the Wikipedia has become a control mechanism by which they control the way you see things. And what's that guy's name? That
Philip Cross.
For it was like 30% of all of Wikipedia or something like that. He's editing.
Philip Cross is the name of the character, and it's at least 3 people. At least there are a couple of anons that have tried to figure out who the people behind Philip Cross are, and there's a couple of like. I mean, there's like IRC chat room discussions and shit like that, but I think there was a GitHub post a while ago where they gave you the best possible answers for who Philip Cross may be. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and it's a mechanism for narrative management that people wouldn't necessarily think of as such. Do you know what I mean?
You're talking about Q or Wikipedia? I kind of
Wikipedia. Okay. Yeah, we can get back to the nonsense LARP that Q is in a moment, but yeah, it is important to talk about Wikipedia as sort of a vessel for narrative management, I think.
Yeah, you can have people actually as an individual that it's about. There's a page about Steve, and you can call in and be like, "This is me." That's completely incorrect, and they won't care. It's not, and I believe there's even rules about that in some way, but at the end of the day...
Yeah, there's rules that you can't make your own Wikipedia page, but I mean, the thing is, like, if someone say someone close to you who knows all this shit then took that and wanted to go in and like make sure that the Wikipedia page was factual, then you'd probably have some cunt come around to their Wikipedia page and be like, oh no, these edits are false, because that's what happened when I tried to edit Neera Tandon's Wikipedia page to include the Libya email. And my account got restricted because of vandalism for posting something in it that she wrote. So
right, and this is the clown shoe Orwellian world that we're in, where we literally facts, like it's not debatable. There's things that we know are the case, but because now we're back to the context point, right? It's not that it's incorrect. It's that people use that true thing to mislead people. Now we're down in this open road of just nonsense where true things don't matter because people misunderstand them. I mean, it's even foggy in that point, But so that's what happens with Wikipedia. And then we get back to the Philip Crosses of the world. And I think it's important to remember, or even rather just kind of consider, it's not a guarantee that someone like Philip Cross or these people are like, controlled, or I mean, I shouldn't say it like that they're like agents, let's say. It's possible, it's just as likely as anything else that Cross doesn't even realize that he is what he is. You know what I mean? He probably is all trumped up on his own power and righteousness about how good he is fighting for the truth, and he's just being led by the very same CIA groups or whatever else we're talking about, but we can all see how clearly it's directing the narrative in any conversation, and it shouldn't be.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. There are bubbles that people live in and that people fall into, especially if you're in any sort of level of professional class, and all you hear are the same reinforcing talking points and the same reinforcing narratives. And I talk to people out in the real world who understand mostly, or at least have a general idea of what's going on in the world, even if they're not necessarily engaged. Like, they know something's fundamentally wrong. They know that they can't trust any branch of their government. These are, I guess, awarenesses that they've had, but they don't know how to communicate it, and they're afraid to voice their own opinion in their social groups. Yes. Because the reinforcing narratives in their social groups make it so that their opinion isn't just out of the mainstream, but almost forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And this is what we talked about before on the show, is that, you know, this is the question we should all be asking ourselves right now. Are we in fact the majority? It's very possible that the vast majority of this country, at the very least, is questioning whether or not these things are the case. And we're just so, you know, I mean, again, think about where we get, the only place we get any perception of like the whole picture is from the mainstream media. So no matter where we are in this position, we look to, you know, we kind of get it from them, and they say, well, here's what the right thinks, here's what the left thinks, here's what everyone thinks about COVID. And I believe pretty strongly that they're actively gaslighting all of us into thinking that we're the fringe, so we don't speak out, just like you're talking about. Now, a good example of that kind of echo chamber scenario you're talking about that I always bring up is when Barry Weiss was on the Joe Rogan show. And it's such a clear example of how she doesn't even understand the things she's saying, because
what's a toady?
You know, it's like she just knows that if she reiterates this thing, that they're going to go, you're right, good job, we all agree with you, we're all so smart, you know, and that's kind of how it goes. But he's on the show, and Joe gives like the most pathetic, smallest, not even real pushback, and she's like, whoa, let me look it up on my phone, and she's like so confused. I'm obviously over exaggerating, but the point is, he was just so kind of like didn't know what the word meant, had to look it up, had to find like points of other people that tweeted and go, yeah, see, they said that. This is a New York Times writer, you know what I mean? And the point is, they're just so used to having this feedback loop on about certain things they say that they don't even get pushback at all until they're confronted with Joe Rogan. It's like, God forbid, come on my show. Let's see some. Let's find out what really happens when we ask basic questions. You know,
you get one. You get one question, Ryan. You get one, and then they bounce. No, I at least in my experience, I mean, you know, there's interviews that you have that you know you're going to have again, and even if you have a point of contention, you know, like the guest isn't necessarily selling something, so they'll come back on. And you can, you know, you can disagree, and you could still have a wonderful conversation. You can learn from each other, and, you know, go on like grown-ups, you know.
Yes, how it used to be, or to some degree.
but then, like, I was on a live stream where Roger Stone was the guest, and I'm like, I'm only going to get one chance ever in the world to ask Roger Stone a question. I know this, you know? So yeah, so I directly pushed on him about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, and he danced around the question and then bailed on the live stream.
That was on the Union of the
Unwanted.
Yeah, it was the Union of the Unwanted. Which, by the way, shout out to that crew: Ricky Barandis, Charlie Robinson, Sam Tripoli. They put together a great little community there. I think there's one tonight. If there's not one tonight, there's one next week.
Yeah. Glad you said that. It's just too late for me these days. I'm an old man. It's like 7 p.m. and I'm always like dozing off, you know. I have to get interviews with him though. They're good people, definitely. Sorry.
Yeah, what you were saying.
No. I absolutely did. I'll gas that show up anytime, man. Those guys are fantastic. And I saw Jason Burns in the chat here earlier. Big shout out to Jay. Love you, my brother. And he's on the Union of the Unwanted pretty regularly too. He got to ask Roger Stone about John Bolton, and Roger Stone, poor guy, was like, yeah, I may have misjudged that.
Oops. Yeah, but trust the plan though, you know. It's like, darn it. And the same thing with sedition. You know, I mean, not to bring it back, I don't get how there are still people, since this was the opening discussion point on Q, how in the world there are still people that are following this down, right? I mean, for crying out loud, like, I get it. You can be like, please, please, please be that. But I'm starting to think it's not, right? I get that. But to be like, this is it, do your research. I can't believe you don't think she's going to be president on March 4th. You know, it's like, I mean, I don't know if you've seen, I mean, there's two conflicting things, right? Either March 4th, he's going to be the president, or technically he already is, and they allowed Biden to pretend to be, so people.
Yeah, he's like a shadow president or something now.
Oh yeah,
and
Biden,
it's insane.
Is part of the team now.
Yeah, but
part of the Q griftoverse. Yeah.
Well, but that's actually, you know what's funny? That's actually true when you understand what this really is. They're all part of it, right? They're all using you to manipulate people. Now, the best thing I always say to people that haven't heard this conversation is imagine what would have happened with COVID-19 if Trump wouldn't have been president. Yep. Imagine what all of these people that, I mean, that they effectively, what's the right word for it? You know, stop them from acting out. They you know,
deactivated. They were deactivated.
Well, deactivated's good, but there's more. I mean, basically, all the patriots and all the people out there, the constitutionalists, the people that would have flipped out the moment that Hillary Clinton would have done anything even remotely like Trump did, Defense Production Act, martial law, state of emergency, and they pacified them. That's the word I was looking for, right?
Okay.
They're there, and they know these things, and they care about them, but they went, oh, but Trump did it. Okay.
Like, it kind of like wakes them up, but then what it does that makes it essentially a psyop and a whole like plant experiment is the fact that it funnels them into falling in line with the same exact establishment agenda that they think they oppose. Like the moment that QAnon started cheering on regime change in Iran and Venezuela was the point where I was like, okay, something's up here. And now they spread a little, like, because there is a little truth to what Q was saying about COVID, and they got people to be skeptical to the narrative. But then, like, what did they do to actually, you know, resist and put up a front against Op Warp Speed? Nothing.
Right. Or even just go back to the very beginning. It's the same point, and that's why those things are so alarming and so successful. Q was saying and before even Q, right? Follow the White Rabbit. I mean, the moment this whole thing started, people like at the time that we were talking with like Nathan and Titus, and we were calling this out from the very beginning, going like, maybe this is the case, but here's a reason why this is suspect, you know. But they were things that they were saying that were like, okay, right, it's in line with what a lot of this kind of anti-establishment movement is thinking, and that's what Trump was too. They capitalized on that anti-establishment thing. But as we've talked about on the show before, Russiagate was the other side of that. In this, I think they were one and the same. I think that was one, and that's kind of what's happening still today. Now it's a sort of Russia-China gate-ish, right? It's the same kind of narrative. And then the Q thing is still going. I don't know how that's happening, but it's effectively driving people around to trust the government at a time when we have never had more reason to doubt the government.
It's still going because people ultimately hate to admit they've been duped.
Yep.
And ego and personal pride has so much to do with this. The people on I mean, we talk about it some on the Assange Vigil, but I don't know if it even gets explored a lot with content creators and their audiences. Mostly because most content creators don't do what we do, Ryan. Like they try to keep people locked in, you know, and they feed them confirmation bias porn and collect money.
Good for business. Yeah.
And you and I do the opposite of that. We encourage people to go out and think for themselves and to not just get stuck on this show, but to actually, like, you know, learn as much as you humanly possibly can, and then take that out in the world and share it with your friends and neighbors. Not a wonderful business model, but you can sleep better at night.
Yeah, and it actually does more for humanity, because that's what we're really here for.
Yeah,
actually. But when oh shit. God damn it. I got lost there trying to talk nicely about my own show.
Independent media is a bunch of punk asses. You were along that line.
I know. It's insane to me that more content creators don't like explore the concept of it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to admit you're wrong. Being duped happens to everyone. Just because you got took on something doesn't mean you're a bad person or a stupid person or a worthless person. It just means you have the opportunity to learn something. And what you should have learned is don't trust the magic man on 4chan. What you should have learned is don't trust anyone running as a progressive in the Democratic Party.
Oh my God.
On the opposite side of that argument, what you should have learned is that the Republicans and Democrats are two sides of the same fucking coin, and that coin is there to never leave the room as it travels across continents, gaining more and more mass.
Yeah, well, that gets to the other side of this, which is like on the left, these fucks still having so much faith in progressive Democrats and, you know, thy holy Saint Bernard. It's like people on the left will laugh all day long at QAnon because, ha ha ha, they think Pizzagate it was real and that Hillary Clinton is running the presidency right now. Ha ha ha, they're so stupid. And then they go and throw all their money behind Bernie Sanders. Like,
Or back.
no, it's like Steve said, two sides of the same coin. Like both people are being sheepdog backed into this perpetual wheel of duopoly, whether they know it or not.
Exactly. But this is why I want to use this moment to call to all of us, even myself. I will fall into the trap of wanting to make, you know, a real choice point that falls into the two-party paradigm, you know, be like, oh, those stupid left or right, whatever in the moment, you know, and be like, look, they were wrong. And we all want to take that because it feels good and because we were right and we called it out. But I want to caution all of us. I feel like now is the time we need to unify more than ever. You know what I mean? And I'm with you. Trust me. There are so many in what people want to call themselves, the independent media that embarrass what we're doing, you know, but at the same time, there are a lot of them out there that I don't think are doing it for intentionally wrong reasons, you know, and what we need to do is fight our best to not be more divisive, you know, because that's what they want. They want us to push against it and fight back. And we need to all turn around and look at the people that are making us fight each other, you know, and that's sort of what I've been trying to do with the Q thing. You know, it's like more than ever, I've noticed that whole group, I mean, right now, they're just sort of like, there's a huge part of them. They're just going like, damn it, man. Like really, like we are just, this is frustrating. You know, we're wrong. Trump left us. They've left us. All these people are gone that we used to listen to. I mean, that's a situation that leads to violence, danger, right? I mean, that's a radicalization moment. And I think that's what they're doing, to the point that we said earlier with Whitney, and we've talked about. That's what they're driving this for. That's why we need to help stop that. You know, more so right now, I feel like it's easier to point to people on a side that you more so agree with. You know, even just to pull more so out of the two-party illusion, you know, it's like everybody out there, even including myself, we need to continue to do that and fight against that, you know, like, excuse me. Ooh, I just choked on my own breath. But I want to ask, you know, where are the people right now? And this is again, it's not to call people out, but to go, you know, this should be a healing moment. Where are the FGT reports and the X-22s and these people that have been driving this home, even though they knew there was reason to question, right? I mean, I really don't know. Are they still pushing this? Are they now shifting direction? You know, it's like those people are paramount to actually turning this thing around. Imagine if he stood up tomorrow and said, we were tricked, we were wrong, and here's why. But it doesn't mean this was all for nothing. That could change everything, you know? But I would also caution about that happening in another manipulation. We just need to be open and question everything, you know? But anyway, I just think it's important.
That's fair. And I try not to ever fall into certainty.
Right.
You know, at least with something related to geopolitics or biotech or national security or anything like that. It's certainty is problematic, because especially when it comes to things of a political nature, once you're certain about things of a political nature, that's when the ideology becomes dogma. Yes. And dogma turns into a physical manifestation of that. And when they push all of these, you know, like the entire Q community, for example, when they push them off of regular social media, then you leave them no choice but to organize on deeper, darker corners of the internet, which is where this radicalization would take place, which seems to be exactly what the fucking, I don't know, let's call them demons, would like for the Q community to do. They would like them to go get radicalized, become militant, and actually do get to a position where there is something that isn't laughable when you describe it as an insurrection.
I think that's the plan. I genuinely believe that's what's happening right now. I think that and I don't even think that they, as in the hierarchy enslaving you, really cares what side it is or what, you know what I mean? Like they just need something to point at and say, they're acting crazy, radicalization, you know, whatever, domestic terrorism. So now we can push back into you guys as the problem, you know, and that'll only divide us even more. because then they're going to be people like us that are going to be honest enough to say that they're not what you're calling them. Then suddenly we're now terrorists because we're defending the terrorists. You know what I mean? And it's a never ending loop. And it's 9/11 Patriot Act internalized, right? I mean, which really was, I argue that was just the first step of this longer plan, but
yeah.
We can see that it's aimed at us right now. And that's really scary. I mean, I'm every step they take, the rhetoric isn't getting worse, more intense. I mean, look at the Capitol. That's not gone. I don't think that's ever going away. That's a third world country we're staring at right there.
Yeah. The insurrection, which, in the Davos panel on protecting press freedom that we watch, they framed that as a manifestation of what happens when people have access to unfiltered information.
That's the language. That's the language. Like, that's almost a verbatim quote right there.
That is really alarming. I mean, I don't know why people take that as if, anybody who hears that has to understand what they're saying is controlling what you get to see. That's what that means. And it's just so crazy this is why we continue to see this kind of floated idea that the elites should have more control over the president, or the elites should have more control over what, our decision-making process. Now, I've seen 3 different examples of that, and two of them at least have been rolled back. Remember the Washington Post one? Actually, the headline actually said why the elite should have more control over who picks the president. And then they immediately pulled it back, changed the headline, even changed the URL, but it's the same article. And it's like, but they want us to, they're seeding that idea. We should let them choose for us because they're better than us. That's what it is. That's why you'll own nothing by 2030 and you've never been happier, but somebody owns all that stuff, right? It's just not us. It's the same people we're talking about.
It's like they're trying to frame and conflate, like, an image of professionalism with the truth, and trying to make the mainstream the truth, and wanting us all to operate from one set of facts that are 100% true. It's like disregarding the fact that people should be allowed to question the official narrative, especially when the same agents and intelligence agencies and state propagating that official narrative have led us to, environmental destruction and war and authoritarianism. We should be able to question that, but no, questioning that makes you QAnon. So
right. What they're creating is essentially, this is all this real big influence on authority lately, right? Whether science or doctors or politicians, that we need to listen to our betters. That's been being driven into us. Yeah. And it's what they're trying to create is sort of like a mommy daddy kind of a thing, right? So when you're a kid, you don't get to be like, I don't know, mom, I don't agree with your logic, right? You don't get to do that. And that's what they want to create with us, is where it's basically like, this is important. We know what's best. You don't know everything. Right? Maybe you will someday. Like, this is this whole mentality, and it's working to a degree. There are people that go, look at all these morons. That's what they're using for, the conspiracy theorists. They go, look at all these dangerous people. I don't want them having a say in what I have to do. Right? It's like reverse engineering. Like, they're using us against ourselves, and it's I don't know why that's not apparent.
But it's taking the concept of a nanny state and redefining it into a master slave state.
Yeah, definitely.
And it doesn't, like, essentially borderless is what they're talking about. Look, you can just watching, and I'll even, like, we'll send you the panel too, because it's like, four media figures nobody's ever heard of.
It's
like casually describing the need for censorship and narrative management in a gatekeeper media, like without any sense of irony or outrage.
Right.
And that, I don't know, that smugness, that
entitlement,
just sort of callousness.
Yeah,
it carries over into every single one of these panels. And every single one of these panels, you can only view so much as the public. You've got to as the general public. The breakout sessions are private. There are extended conversations where you have to subscribe to the World Economic Forum's website in order to get access to the full conversations. And people say that us talking about it is, conspiracy theory. Yet here we have a group of financial global elites meeting in private behind closed doors to determine the future outcome of events.
That's literally what we're talking about, right? That's the definition of, they are. I mean, look, what we need to understand is the word conspire. I mean, if you can have the word conspire in a Christmas song, pretty sure it's not necessarily what they want to make it out to be. It's just a term. It means to gather together and discuss, right? So the idea is that people gathering together to discuss things is not outside the realm of possibility. Like this, it becomes childishly stupid when you break down just the sentence, So then theorizing things, obviously that's not unreal. We see it happen every day. We're theorizing all kinds of things, theorizing how to build that building over there. So when you put them together, suddenly it's completely outside the realm of possibility. It's just dumb. But it's a way to disparage and undermine very real things, as we've come to know. But all of this, their discussions, what they're pushing, and how easily they can just dismiss things like this it needs to accentuate the point of why we need to build an alternative type system, a decentralized internet, continue to lean into uses of blockchain technology that actually open up the system as opposed to close it down. Like, it's like the internet, right? People, what they're trying to do right now is desperately get you to think blockchain technology is absolutely the worst thing possible. And it could be used to control you for sure. I absolutely believe that. They are trying to do that. But just like with the internet, it can be used like this, right? They never imagined, I don't think, we would end up using the internet to fight back and basically do something more than they ever imagined. With the blockchain technology, it's about how we apply it, right? So if we sit back and allow them to take control of this technology, build cryptocurrencies that they like and how they want, and we let that be the case, then they will use it against us. But if we continue to support the ones that fight against that system, groups that are making decentralized internets, I believe we can actually fight back. But it's not just about cryptocurrency or blockchain. It's about the whole big picture. And we need to find ways to find, person-to-person type of stuff, bartering systems, like things that go outside the way these operate. That's the only way we're going to fight back. Alternative platforms too, by the way, which currently I'm working on one that I can't, I keep saying that. We're damn close, guys, but it's like, I believe this is going to be something, if it works the way we believe it does, that will, to some degree, one step in the right direction, shift. I believe that.
There's been such a movement over the last 4 or 5 years of people trying to build alternative platforms, and I hope they all succeed. I really do. Like I do. I'm for the success of all of these, because the more we get away from the marriage of big tech and government in terms of how social media is controlled and how it performs, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I'm stoked to hear that. I know that there's some of the members of the anonymous community have been working on something similar for a number of years. There's a beta set up now, I believe.
And Mark and AK and all of them. Nice.
More the better. I mean, but that's what we need, is more systems built out. We need to create a community outside of their control and their organization. The one we're looking at now is it's a streaming platform, right? My mindset was, my whole driving point of this has been about making something that makes a lot of these things combined obsolete. Where you don't need to have a YouTube and a Patreon and all these different things. It'll be a place where you can come and do them all at the same place, that actually function and driven with the mindset of a person like me who knows what people like us want, and it ultimately will end up being something that is, if it works the way we believe it will, and I have a lot of faith in these people that we're working with, that it will be something that will be very, very difficult to take down and stop. Right. And because it is something that is, in a way, I don't want to say decentralized, but it is in a way, and so what I think is this is a one step in the direction. I'm hoping somebody looks at this and takes it 10 times further. Like there's one that I've waffled on lately because of the connections they've made and different things, but there's a group called Holochain, or Holo. It's a cryptocurrency that is all about a decentralized internet, but it's flirting with mainstream stuff that makes me uncomfortable. But I want something like that that's built completely outside of the control of this, that, that's not utilizing different networks that are already in control of these banksters or the groups we're talking about. And I think I don't know why that hasn't happened yet. I mean, I do. It's because they're actively stopping it and suppressing it and fighting against it. But that's what we need.
Yeah. And fuck, yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. That is. And I would love to have you back on for an extended conversation about that when you're ready to present it to the group. I'm glad you brought up cryptocurrency. I'm glad you brought up the blockchain. There's like a 35-minute panel on, it's titled Resetting Digital Currencies is the name of the panel.
I think it didn't end.
And it's at Davos.
Sorry, there was a gap. I thought you stopped talking. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I lost you there for a minute. But anyway, the woman who opens it has like the first or only crypto market on the African continent. She is not an African woman, but she owns this platform. And she's talking about, so and she works for the World Economic Forum, and she was like, I have direct relations with the asset class, and what we need is to have the asset class have faith in digital marketplace and crypto marketplace. And right now they currently have their faith locked up in the traditional market and the stock market, and we need some sort of massive shift for their trust to come our way. And just less than 24 hours later, the asset class was given a perfectly viable reason to no longer trust the digital marketplace in the GameStop scenario.
Right. I mean, I'm glad you brought it there, because that's, I definitely feel that this whole thing is just great as it is. I mean, I'm right off the bat, I'm concerned that there's more to this than we see. I'm concerned that this is being driven, or that it's being allowed to happen for a very certain reason, but it doesn't change how great it is and how much I like seeing it happen, and how much so it's such a guilty pleasure to just watch and see.
No, it's all right, dude.
It is.
Petty.
I love it.
It's okay.
But it does expose the broken nature of all of this. I mean, these people are quite pathetic right now in the way that they're going. We understand that these people didn't break any. How is this different than any kind of an investment group? They just don't like the way that it happened and the way that they manipulated what these people thought was a sure bet. But it's already influencing cryptocurrency, right? I'm already seeing it happen. Whether or not this was allowed or intentional, it's being used, like always. I'm already seeing them pulling the reins in on a lot of stuff. I mean, my VPNs aren't working on a lot of things where they've always worked, where you can't even use them now on certain. I'm talking like some of the platforms like Mines the other day wouldn't work unless I turn my VPN off. And these are almost counter. That could have just been a browser thing. So I don't want to say it was mine. That I doubt it was. But my point is, there's a lot of that happening. 3Speak was just completely blocked off by all Microsoft servers. And it's like this all happened right around the same time frame. And we saw the cryptocurrency kind of tie in with the Dogecoin, where they talked about that a little bit. And now I think India right after this was all of a sudden said they're going to ban all forms of things like Bitcoin so they can roll in their own digital currency. I think it was India, right? So it's just like there's too much happening around that to not see that at the very least they're using that. So it's dangerous, But what I think I just saw today, and this is a good note for people on this current event on that topic. Robinhood, I believe, just got $3.5 billion from, who you could probably imagine to stop this whole GameStop thing. So not only do they hate that you make any money whatsoever doing exactly what they do on a daily basis, which is manipulate markets and real world actions and everything else, but now they're going to steal more money from your pocket, or from insider elitist funding, and then I guess stop that from happening with more money, of course. It's like, so they use you as an investment firm. So your actions actually made them money, essentially. Well, I think arguably that group, 70 billion was the total loss, is what it said. But anyway.
But that 70 billion went somewhere.
Yeah.
And we had firms like BlackRock that were tied to GameStop, They were locked in. If GameStop, like they were locked into the short, and they had they've got partial ownership in GameStop.
See, now that's really suspect. You know what I mean? Like the idea, because that's interesting. So if you short,
essentially BlackRock just got bailed out.
Well, I maybe. Well, how does that work? So if you short the stock in a real heavy position, and then you get the short squeeze happens, they have to buy the stock back at the higher price, so they lose their ass. But if they own it, they're on the other side of it, essentially making lots of profit from the stock. I don't know. See, I'm not a stock market guy, you know. And I'm really,
their hedge fund
just found
was part of their hedge fund was part of GameStop's like rescue, and they were locked into ownership of GameStop for X amount of time. I was on a stream, Anonymous Bites Back, the other night, and it was as this was breaking, because I brought it up, and they're like, no. It's not the game. It's not that BlackRock is going to profit from the short per se. It's that they're going to profit on the back end.
Right.
And they had already, as the stock had risen, they had already made like $2.5 billion.
It's I'd like to see how much they actually lost on the short, because if it was like a not a heavy position, I would probably think that you're right, and that probably would be that this would make me wonder whether they've orchestrated the whole damn thing. I actually found something else that I was going to talk about later. I might still have it up, where it turns out that this one of these guys. Now, my first instinct when I saw this was that this was essentially them trying to make the case for why this was not what we all want it to be, just Redditors fighting back against the terrible people.
Yeah.
But I can't find it now. But basically, it turns out that one of these guys involved on the whole Wall Street Bets thing, they're like, he's not a small timer, he's a big time guy with all of these ties with this and with that, and they're whatever. But it just seems like they're just making a lot about the fact that he just is a traitor. Which, again, is that wrong that he did this? Like, it's amazing how they're making something out that's not really illegal at all to something bad just because they didn't win. You know, it's just pretty ridiculous. Oh, here, I think
I mean, we're dealing with spoiled children.
Yes.
I mean, we're dealing with the asset class, as that, you know, freakishly frightening woman put it in the Davos panel.
Right.
We're dealing with people who largely, and I'm painting this with a broad brush, and I'm allowed to be wrong about this. And, you know, I'm sure that somewhere there is a hard scrabble climbed up from, you know, the wrong side of the tracks and the dregs of back-ass nowhere to become a successful broker. But by and large, this is an extended fraternity and an extended sorority, you know, and you're in the club before you get in the club, by and large. So when somebody like that loses their ass to the point to where they may actually be, you know, not like broke with 300 grand in the bank, but broke. Oh my God, they're gonna lash out. You know, I mean, they're gonna lash the fuck out like petulant little children, and that's exactly what's going on right now. And I gotta admit,
politicians are being
I'm here for that. I am. It's hilarious.
Politicians are just doing fucking corporate PR for them like they always do. And like people aren't picking up on that as much as I hope they would either. Because
Elizabeth Warren body slammed the public in defense of hedge funds. And people are like trying to argue that pointing that out is somehow misogynist. I think.
Of course, that's the only thing they can do. It's either racist or misogynist, something. It's that. It's whenever you point out something that challenges their that's called having no argument, is what's that called. And what's crazy is like Elizabeth Warren of all people, right? This whole thing has exposed the big facade that all of this is. That any of these people care about you, that any of them have any vested interest in your actual success or safety is childish. It's absolutely childish. I found the article. It's from Wall Street on Parade. It says GameStop promoter, which is funny because it went promoter. So it's like, it's just a guy that, so right now, technically we would be GameStop promoters, right? Because we're going, yay, right? It's just so funny how they tie this together. His name was
I don't have big enough sunglasses to be a promoter right now.
Yeah, right. Keith Gill is his name. It says was no amateur trader. He held sophisticated trading licenses and worked in the finance industry. So what? Like, why does that somehow imply that what they want?
So why is it worked? And why not works? If he is a master manipulator of you know, massive hedge fund, why isn't it in the present tense?
Oh, get this. Here it says under this caption, it says he appeared on a Mass Mutual website on April 29, 2020. Like none of this stuff, but basically it seems to boil down to me is that this guy did some trading. And that somehow is a signal that this is not some action, but rather a MAGA Q insurrection psyop for the financial field. I mean, that's how they're trying to frame this thing, you know, and it's just so dumb. It really is. It's embarrassing.
Nah,
I've
that's
heard the world looking at us right now and laughing, you know, because of how the insurrection that's just, you know, people walking through velvet ropes, you know, and it's like, it's just, I mean, we'd say that jokingly. Obviously, there were people that were breaking windows in that one hallway, but there's a huge grouping of people there that didn't do any of that, you know. And interestingly enough, I'm seeing, I keep trying to avoid falling down those rabbit holes, because every time one of these events happens, Las Vegas, for instance, they'll drip out little nonsensical things that don't really change anything to get you pulled back in and going, oh, look at this one thing that doesn't really change the narrative. But apparently one of these guys that keeps turning up in all of this, there's some suspicious points in these videos. More than once where he just comes out of nowhere from behind the police line. It's really odd where they're all in this hallway where supposedly they're holding off all the people. And this guy with this fuzzy hat, not the hat.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Buffalo hat guy.
And kind of goes and pushes himself back in with the crowd. And it's like, what? That's weird. And then he's the one that takes a helmet and bashes the window for the first time.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I suspect all of that. Go ahead.
I tend to make people like, I don't know, at least when I talk to random people, or when I, you know, go talk to somebody who's 100% running with like the liberal narrative on this one. But I was there, I was on the ground, I was at the Capitol, I was not in the Capitol. That is what I was not, you know. But I can only speak to what I saw, you know. So if somebody were to ask me a question about something that wasn't in my direct line of sight while I was there, I don't want to speak to that. I have friends, you know, who were in other parts of the Capitol throughout the day. I've had them on. We've been trying to piece all of this together as best we could. And the sense that we had on the ground in real time was that we were participating, or not participating, but observing a real life false flag. And it was, I mean, instantly you could just, that was the feeling. And the people that were on the ground,
a lot of people there were also just there naturally, right? Is that what you mean? So there's a lot of, but they're orchestrators essentially.
The people that I spoke to on the plane on the way back felt like they'd been used. That's their words. That used. One of them said set dressing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so, I mean, these are people that went out because they were pissed off about the election. They felt like this was a way for them to have their voice heard. You know, they were basically doing what they believed was their constitutionally guaranteed American right, which was to freely assemble and protest. And that's what they thought they were going for.
Exactly.
You know,
and that's the case.
And well, yeah, and there were people that drove up because they didn't believe anything that they'd been told about what this event. I talked to a couple of people. This is exactly what they said. I didn't believe anything about it. I had to see it for myself, so I drove up to see it. I felt like I had to. Mm-hmm. Okay, rad. What do you think? Everybody here has been treating me wonderfully. Okay, that's because you're an adorable day drunk woman from Tennessee, you know. But okay. You know, I get it. I'm glad nobody's treated you ill, madam. You can take 4 steps back now. You're in my bubble. Like, but no, I mean, there is, when it's all said and done, there were maybe a dozen, maybe 20 bad actors.
They were all let in the gate to begin with. Like, you can't remove that point from the existence.
Take Alaska. He's a Fed, guys.
or we found out that the leader of one of the guys in the Proud Boys was an FBI informant. You know what I mean?
For a decade, bro. Really? For a decade. I keep finding less surprising things as 2021 rolls on. But at the time when that came out, it was like, okay, well, here's the least surprising thing I'll read. Right. You know, and
I think on this show we said something similar to that beforehand. You know, yes, we see this coming.
But I mean, if you extrapolate from that, if the leader of a right-wing movement is an FBI asset going back a decade, and you have these other right-wing movements that have arisen fully funded with shiny merch and great material and a fucking cohesive nationwide presence, maybe you should think about the Proud Boys and Enrique Tarrio, and the fact that before he even joined this organization, let alone rose to national prominence, he was already an FBI asset.
Which shouldn't mean, for people out there that, you know, are maybe part of that group or support it or understand it, doesn't mean that everybody in that, just like with anything, same thing with Black Lives Matter, same thing with Occupy Wall Street, right? We know that in Occupy Wall Street, there was an FBI leader that essentially drove that thing into the ground. But doesn't mean that people involved with that didn't have good intentions, it wouldn't actually have worked if it wasn't that direction, right? So the point being is that they always do this with the intention of same thing they're doing with Q and everything else, right? But it shows you that there's an effort to drive it in obvious directions so they can use it. Why were Proud Boys being pushed into the media so often all that time? Well, there you go, because they're using it for an obvious reason, you know? What I find very telling is that we can have that one video that's been used to make this whole thing out to be what they want it to be, right? Where you have that one cop that's pressed in between people and he's going, oh, and whatever, you know? And so there's a CNN cameraman right there filming this, or at least someone who sold this to CNN or whatever. But I know it was an actual mainstream person. It wasn't somebody there as a MAGA person, because I've seen them talk about this and whatever. So the point is that person is not being called a terrorist because he was there, but because of his ideology, right? So another person over here, which we've already talked about, there's multiple people there that were actually only filming and were also charged and called terrorists because they were Republicans that were just filming, right? So it just shows you that there's this absurd choice to choose who, just by virtue of what you are and what you think, you're a terrorist because you were present, right? I know somebody, I sent somebody that was present, that was there. I know somebody that was there, that was in that building, that was filming, that I don't even want to talk about, because at the end of the day, they'll probably get tracked down and sussed out and end up accused of something, even though they were literally there just to film and immediately got the hell out of the way when it was clear violence was starting to break out, you know? It just bothers me that that individual that's being all over the CNN videos is just automatically deemed okay because their political side, you know? It's just, how in the world are we not smart enough to see through this, guys? I don't understand.
I know you got to get out of here. Ryan's going to be going live here in about 10 minutes. Whitney's going to be on. Make sure you go check that out. There's absolutely no reason for us to continue live streaming and run up against that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap too. Ryan, please tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, thelastamericanvagabond.com is the best thing you can do. And I say that for every alt channel out there right now. You should go to their websites instead of anything else. Subscribe. Make sure that that's where your hub is, and then go elsewhere. Other than that, we still have all the other channels. I mean, every video I have lists most of them, but I argue the best right now, up until the new platform, would be Odyssey, probably Rockfin, and BitChute. But just search The Last American Vagabond or TLA Vagabond. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hell yeah. Thank you, man. It's always good to see you, and we'll talk soon.
Peace, guys. Have a good one.
Take care. I enjoy those conversations.
Me too.
Very much, very much. Right, Ryan Christian. Did I say it right? I didn't say it right. No.
Because the thing is I feel like if it has the accent on the A, then you also got to roll the R. Like, granted, I don't know Ryan's ethnicity like that, but when I see a name spelled like that, I'm thinking, okay, Ryan Christian. Like, I feel like this would have been a great thing to ask him while he was on stream, but I mean,
no. Why would we do that? This is more fun, arguably.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I mean, next time we'll do. You can introduce him next time if you like. Roll your R's for Ryan.
If I do an introduction for this channel, it's gonna be the most awkward shit ever, because that's just who I am.
Where the hell did Steve's camera go?
I don't know, but I don't know what to do because it's awkward. Oh no!
All right, tell us about the website, Glory.
Oh no! Okay. Everybody, we have a website called slownewsdayshow.com that our man J-Tech, the Tech Ninja, just fucking updated. So go check that out. Slownewsdayshow.com, all lowercase, no spaces. Slownewsdayshow.com. You go check that out. And our man Steve, oh, Steve's back. Okay, so.
My internet took a shit there for a moment.
I noticed.
We figured. I plugged the website.
So plug the
I
rest.
heard, I could hear you. I was off in the void somewhere.
Aw.
I don't know. I don't know. In the ether. I will be on the combo couch here in about an hour. And we'll be doing a deep dive into the Great Reset.
Wait, is that at 1 or at 12?
I think it's a 1. Maybe it's a 12. Or no, it might be 1. I don't know.
So in
We'll
2
figure it
hours.
out. Whenever they go live, I'll be on. I think it's 1. It might be 1. I forgot. Oh, that's right. Because Ryan was supposed to be on at 11. And then he had to push it back to 10. So I'm normally at work for this. Under normal circumstances, right now, at this moment, I would be like hanging ceiling joists, getting ready to hang sheetrock. Like that's what my day was supposed to be. But I'm catching up. Fuck you. Don't judge me.
I'm not judging you.
Talking to the rest of them. I don't know.
Well, fuck you too
I
then.
mostly know when my own show starts. I'm usually pretty good about that.
Yeah.
I figure the people whose show it is have a decent idea of when they're going to start and when I'm going to be on. So you can check with the Convo Couch and Pasta Chartula and Fiorella Isabel and Jonathan Mayorka. I told you to wait in the truck, Glory.
I'm about to bust out the wrap it up box. So
I told you to wait in the truck.
Fuck you, Steve.
What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what Ryan said towards the end of it. Like, as much as these movements might be manufactured or headed by complete feds like Jesse Jackson and racial identity buffering or Sean King, don't be afraid to reach out to on the ground activists that are involved in these movements, because there's a genuine energy there. So if you're willing to learn with them and educate them, then we'll be in a better place. And that goes for people both on the left and the right, because there are people who love to reach out to Trump supporters but then won't extend that same thing to Black Lives Matter protesters because, I don't want to get called a fascist. Well, guess what? We're gonna have to make ourselves uncomfortable if we want this thing to work out, okay? Because I went through a lot of mental hurdles to be able to talk to Trump supporters, so anybody else can do the same thing. So it's my 2 cents. Love y'all, guys. Everybody make sure you tune into Convo Couch at 1 p.m. and go bother Steve on that and tell Pasta to do his best Poikinen impression, because we all love him. So, a big shout out to my man J-Tech, because I felt like it. So, Tech Ninja and that.
you're ridiculous.
And I feel like I want to make sure that I say this on the stream. I called Pasta's impression of me terrible yesterday, and I believe that hurt his feelings, and I would like to apologize to my friend for hurting his feelings. Pasta, I love you, boo. I do. And I realized that I only know how I sound to me. And as Einstein said, if we judged a fish by its ability to climb a tree, we would think it dumb indeed. So if I have treated you like a tree climbing fish, my friend, I am sorry. am. At any rate,
Oh, that was so nice of you, Steve.
free Assange vigil tomorrow night.
Steve's never that nice to us.
I am a fucking joy. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, chick.
Yeah, you said that real joyfully.
I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you to Sleepy Josh on the ones and twos, my wonderful co-host, Gloria Jones. Love you guys in the chat. Good luck to us all.